Great, thank you everyone for joining us today. We will wait a few minutes for more people to join before we get kicked off. Right, we will wait another minute or two to make sure everyone can log in before we get the webinar started. Great. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Welcome to our webinar on the perfect formula for reducing cost and maximizing value. Before we start, just a few reminders. The format of the webinar today will be 45 minutes of discussion, and then we will have 15 minutes for Q&A at the end. I encourage you to put your questions into the chat throughout the session for our panelists to answer during the Q&A. The session will be recorded, and we will send out the recording after the webinar ends. You can share this with colleagues or peers that weren't able to attend live today. And make sure that you stay tuned until the very end of the webinar, where we'll have an exclusive offer for all of our live webinar attendees today. That said, I am Lauren Hopkins, our Business Development Director here at Edlong. We are a global flavor solutions manufacturer. This webinar today brings together our industry expert partners from Ingredion, Bunge, and Mattson. This group's commonality is solving challenges for our collective clients. And together we bring a lot of insight that is going to be helpful to you and deliver value to our consumers ultimately. Based on Innova's December 2022 top trends report for 2023, Edlong's top 3 trends for this year are redefining value, affordable nutrition, and plant-based. Today, we are focusing on redefining value based on changing consumer trends. Almost 2/3 of consumers today are citing a notable increase in the cost of food in the last 12 months. So what does value mean to those consumers? So that's important for our panelists today to discuss key considerations when formulating or renovating for cost reduction, are this team's observations on how food manufacturers are responding to fluctuations in costs and supply, and ultimately, we will leave here with a deeper understanding of how ingredient functionality adds value and decreased costs. So let's start introducing our industry experts. They will each introduce themselves to you. So Ron, please get us started.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Ron Pagawa. I am currently the Senior Marketing Manager for Ingredion, covering savory category as well as food service. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Ron. Jamie.
Hi, I'm Jamie Reeves. I'm the Executive Vice President of our Product Development and Commercialization team at Mattson. And Mattson is a strategy, innovation, and product development company focusing on the food and beverage industry for over 45 years. So we help companies develop great tasting foods.
Thank you for being here, Jamie. Marvin?
I'm Marvin Gertz. I am the Technical Services Director for Bunge. Bunge is a global agribusiness company. We make shortenings and oils, milled ingredients, and plant-based proteins, and I work in the shortening and oils division.
Thank you, Marvin. And lastly, Laura Enriquez from Edlong.
Hello, I'm Laura Enriquez. I am the Master Scientist for Strategic Account here at Edlong, and I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Laura, Jamie, and Ron, and Marvin for joining us today. So to kick us off, Ron, I thought a great question for you would be, help us understand value defined by food manufacturers versus value in the eye of a consumer. Is there a difference? Should there be a difference? So go ahead and start us off today.
Sure, great question. So value obviously today is a big, huge opportunity and a concern for everybody, right? For consumers, because of inflation, they're really looking for that value for money when they go out to the supermarket and buy those products from manufacturers. So consumers, lower cost products may be what they need in terms of taste and texture. They're looking for that in the products that they love. They're looking for potential sustainably grown or locally sourced products, which feeds into their attention to sustainability. But they're also willing to pay potentially for their nutritional needs. So some have dietary restrictions. So they're looking for maybe some reduced sugar claims or reduced fat. Those clean and simple ingredients as well that meet their desire for clean and simple products, but they're also looking to indulge themselves as well too. What are those things that they're willing to forego for small rewards? Maybe it's a piece of candy that they love, right? But they're willing to sacrifice that nice cut piece of meat. But they're looking for their manufacturers to provide this value. For manufacturers, hopefully they're aligned with what their consumers are needing from their products, right? So in terms of manufacturers, they're looking to reduce costs of their formulations by maybe using ingredients that have lower prices. They're looking to potentially increase efficiencies in their production plants by using products that help them increase their efficiencies. But they're also looking to meet their consumer demands, to meet their brand promise, their brand equity that the products consumers are buying. So, to answer your question, I mean, there is some correlation, but there are some differences based on the manufacturer and the consumer. But hopefully they're both aligned so that both are successful in the market.
Thank you, Ron. And Jamie, I kind of want to go next to you. With your background, where at Mattson you work on client-driven projects, and I know in your previous R&D experience with CPG, you were also looking at legacy formulas and how to renovate those. So could you help us understand your approach when you're reformulating, and what do you kind of focus in on to change, and how does that impact the whole design of the formulation?
Yeah, so I'll go back to kind of my CPG past. Every year I was tasked with saving money for the company, and my marketing people would be like, okay, we got to save money. It's got to taste delicious. It's got to have the same texture, same attributes. We can't let the consumer know that anything has changed, because we don't want them to change brands and leave us. And of course, can we save money? Can we add a new claim? Like, what can we do? So I always would joke and say, yeah, do you want me to cure cancer too? But it really actually, our teams were able to dig in. So especially when you're working with legacy brands that may have been formulated, over 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the landscapes of ingredients has changed so much. And you can get more efficiencies in buying power, not powder, when you actually dig in and look at a formula. So our team would look kind of across the category that we'd be looking at and see where there was common ingredients, reach out to our network of vendors, ingredient vendors, just to see what the newest technology is in starches, flavors, anything that we would find a nickel or so savings and really vet that. So my team would always break down the formulas. Like I said, look across the category. So we would compare what ingredients are common ingredients, and if we can combine those across different formulas or simplify the ingredients, that's where we would really dig in. And then a lot of ingredient vendors found solutions for adding claims, whether that be either locally sourced, more natural, a lot of the legacy products that we worked on, it didn't have the natural claim, and that's one of the highest advocated claim that consumers are really demanding and switching brands for. So we're able to do that. And so also at Mattson, we've been able to help big CPGs really understand the new landscape of ingredients in their toolboxes. Like I said, the new starches that are available. There's replacement for some of the higher priced items like eggs. And sometimes you can switch those items to more plant-based, which is also a big growing demand by consumers. So there's so many levers in the toolbox to do the cost savings and finding value and adding meaningful points of difference within your product when you just start looking. So.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. And I know that's something we see at Edlong a lot, is those requests to reduce commodities. You hit on egg, different dairy inputs and how does flavor then help bring that flavor profile back to life. Before we get to that, though, I do want to go to Marvin. So Marvin, specifically in your industry, what are some of the inputs that you have seen increase, and how then does that affect your team's approach to new product development and renovation?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Great question. We have seen, probably a lot of people have seen in their categories, just a huge supply chain impacts. In the shortening and oil space specifically, what we've seen, initially there was increased demand in general, and so that tended to push the prices up. And then unique to shortening and oils, we experienced a huge push on renewable fuels, which, shortening and oils can be used for food. They can also be used for fuel. And so as certain states like California started to apply credits for using renewable sources of inputs into these renewable fuels, we saw the market just increase overall. And then there was a war in Ukraine, which impacted a huge oil in the US, sunflower oil. That's one of the main growing regions for that. So we've just seen a number of different sort of unforeseen things happen to hit all at this same time. And it's been hard to prepare for, and kind of like Jamie was describing through that process that you have to go through to just change over one ingredient for another. It's fairly complex and it can be pretty lengthy. And so what we've seen as things have started to settle down in the market a little bit more recently, people are looking at more of a long-term approach. And so they may be looking at, how do we react in the future if this ingredient that's core to us goes up in price? What other things could we move to? And so they sort of put in place this testing ahead of time now, that they know that they have this in their back pocket and they can jump to it when the situation arises in the future. So we're seeing some of our customers become longer term, more strategic in identifying solutions ahead of time, because these changes in price can happen quickly, but the changes in ingredients take some time to fully vet, because you can't go to market with something that doesn't work. That's not a good plan. So that's kind of the things we're seeing.
Yeah, to add on to that, sorry to cut you off, especially with smaller startups that we work with at Mattson, they unfortunately don't have the buying power and the big contracts, so sometimes they get a little shorted. So we've seen a lot of them finding secondary suppliers or ingredients that we help them prove out and validate that they work in their formula and at the co-packer. So I agree. I think that the world is now changing, where you can't just have one ingredient solution. You definitely need a couple in your back pocket, which, at Mattson too, we always feel bad because using our ingredient suppliers and maybe not having our our clients contract for the volume, but you know, it's interesting to hear you say that other people are doing it and it's commonplace. Makes me feel a little bit better, but you know, it's, I guess, the way we operate these days. So just to ensure supply and have things on the shelf.
Yeah, I would like to add to that like having the startups, you know, doing the rapid prototyping, they might need to change ingredients for their second version that goes out of the market. They try to set everything so fast and get the feedback from customers. And maybe when it comes back, they are going to need to change important ingredients to satisfy the customer demand and the customer expectation. So that also, it's trouble.
Yeah. And I
Yes.
think that that's a great question maybe for Jamie or Ron, but kind of could you help us understand what are some of those common ingredient challenges that you've seen where you've had to kind of have that backup plan? And how then do you still enable innovation to happen given that there's still those challenges?
Yeah, so I think Marvin hit the nail on the head. Sunflower oil has been kind of the biggest problem child in the industry for the last couple of years. And so we've, especially like in lecithins and different stuff, people have moved away from soy and went to sunflower. And so now, you know, we just had to go back and tell the clients that, you know, this is all that's available. If you want to launch your product, this is what we have to do. And so you just do those validation tests and send out samples, and you know, a lot of things function similarly these days. So we've been able to make the changes. Also, it's been great just to have clear transparency from our ingredient vendors. If they're not going to have volume long term, they don't sample ingredients or oils or those ingredients that may be impacted. You know, a lot of the carriers and flavors also have had to been switch out. So we have to validate those. So it's been in tough times. It's getting better, thank goodness. But I'm sure there's going to be more bumps down the road, given that there's still a war.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Mainly, you know, there's a lot of issues around commodities right now, especially like around eggs and butter and dairy. Even tomato solids are, you know, prices are going up. So at Ingredion, we provide a lot of different alternative ingredient solutions that, like, as Jamie said, that still meets the functionality, the flavor, the taste. But I totally agree with you, Jamie, in terms of, you know, us as suppliers need to be proactive in informing our partners that, you know, there may be issues down the road 1 or 2 years from now. Hey, look at this solution that could be a potential fix for that situation. And, you know, kind of going back to what Marvin had said about, you know, manufacturers having potential dual formulations that meet expectations in the time of need. You know, one can be when that ingredient is available, and then one formulation that could substitute when you know that ingredient is starting to be scarce or have supply chain issues. So really working with the manufacturer and the supplier in a partnership that really, you know, foresees a lot of different situations that could happen in the future.
I'd like to add to that because I think, you know, you both hit on it, and you know, that partnership is one of the key things that can help you in these situations, because if you have a strong partnership, you know, you've been working with your suppliers, you can go to them and in a time of need, and they'll be, you know, they'll know you, they'll know the partnership's strong, and they'll be willing to help. You know, many of us have development facilities where we can bring you in and work with you, test and validate what alternatives you might want to look at. The kind of one of the strategies that we've seen our customers take in terms of developing alternatives is sort of a two-part alternative strategy. So we have what we call the sustain formula, which is like what they're making today. And then they identify two alternative formulas. One would be a react formula, where it's like, you know, maybe they're using a high oleic oil, and that high oleic oil becomes scarce, like high oleic sun. You know, is there a formula that they could identify that would reduce the amount of that potentially more scarce high oleic sun to maybe a commodity oil for a temporary time, and then a longer term alternative would also be identified that would be called a diversify formula. So maybe instead of high oleic sun, they use a completely different high oleic oil altogether, like a high oleic canola or high oleic soy. So that's an approach that I think really positions the customers for the long term to be ready to react both in the short term and for the longer term, because like in the case of Ukraine, we don't know how much longer that's going to go. So you know, for folks who were really set on a sunflower lecithin or a high oleic sun oil, them knowing, you know, what the long-term solution would be that maintains their performance level is a smart way to go.
Right. And I think too, probably understanding the impact on labeling, when and if you have to make those changes. I know, Laura, you have seen firsthand customer projects that are focused on either reducing cost or removing volatility of a certain ingredient. Could you actually share one of those examples where we had a challenge and you were able to successfully come up with a solution that met consumer preferences?
Sure. I can think of one where we help a customer reduce a commodity ingredient in a bakery item. It's important to say, and we already kind of mentioned some of this, that we need to understand the functionality of the ingredient that we are replacing, because it's most likely is going to change your texture, your flavor, your aroma, your color. So if we understand all these issues, we might be able to come up with an ingredient system that is not going to change, that is going to help us to change the functionality, and also is not going to allow us to change the quality of the product. So in this case, we had a customer that had a butter spread with spices and herbs, and they went in a frozen bread. So the prices of butter, it was going higher as they are now, and it was hitting their margin, so they asked for help. And it was a really good customer. They gave us all the raw materials, all the formulation, everything that we needed to start the project. They cooperated really nice. So what we decided to do was to profile the butter target that they gave us, to understand the attributes that we needed to consider in the final result. So first, what we thought we should do is reduce the amount of butter, add a different fat and flavors. So we started our testing in the lab. We tried some flavors that we already have in our collection, and we were not happy with that. So we got the flavorists to develop some of the products for us. We did different batches until we got something we like. We went to the customer, and they really wanted to try make an industrial trial. So we did that, and everything was working fine. But at the end, the spreadability of this ingredient was not the same as the target. So we were back to the drawing board. And now we're thinking, so now what approach we're going to take? What are we going to do to make this successful and fast? So we thought about contacting some ingredient suppliers, experts in fats and oils, and we team up with one. And they send us first some of the ingredients they have from at hand, and we didn't like the functionality of those, so they went back to their lab and developed some things for us. We did a bunch of testing. We came up with one that we like. We tweak our flavor to match the profile of the butter that we were working with. Back to the customer, and they want to run another industrial trial, a small one. And this time the project was successful. The functionality was there. The customer wanted to reduce at that time only 10% the cost reduction. So what we found out is, like, teaming up with this ingredient supplier, we were able to exceed the customer expectations. So it is very important to build these strong relationships with experts, suppliers that will help you help our customers, and everybody is working in what they are experts at. So it's a win-win situation overall for everybody.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I agree with you.
Great team together here today. Yeah. Anybody have any other examples to add to that?
Well, that's I was just going to add, you know, kind of how Ron said, there's tomato solid shortage, there's butter and eggs have their own issues. So at Mattson, we definitely work very closely with the ingredient suppliers because, like Laura said, you know, we're not experts in everything. So just to have that deep technical expertise from your vendors is very helpful, because you usually want to reduce whatever is the most expensive, and it usually is, you know, the egg, the butter, the something that's grown in the ground, and replacing it with flavors or starches, or when you luck out, water, because that's free, is the way to go. And so just being able to have that right system and get the same functionality that is going to run through the plant, you know, that's, I've worked with so many different starches, and you just need to make sure that, especially when you're thoroughly processing things, that you're paying attention to what impact the certain starch has and how it survives through those heat curves, and you know, how it sits on shelf and survives through the life cycle of the product. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Laura. You really do need to build in that time to work and get the best solutions, and it's usually not from one place. So it's using everybody's brain.
And it has to be fast, because customers don't have time to wait and start like losing margin. That they are under the clock too.
Yes.
I just want to add, so even when you're developing a totally new product, I think it's great to work with, like Laura said, different experts in the industry that can input their expertise into developing a new product for a manufacturer, a customer, right? So our company is, we're experts in starches and texturizers, but like Jamie said, we're not experts on everything. But for a customer, it's speed to market. How fast can they launch that product into market? And by joining forces, they're defined, that's the value to the manufacturer or the CPG company is getting to market first. So having that structure in place in terms of working together with other companies is great, and we love to do that. So.
Right, we can get there faster together. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So you guys hit on something important there. I mean, speed to market is really important. CPGs protecting profitability, but also still delivering value to customers, because consumers, quite frankly, don't want any more cost increases, right? They're becoming more and more cost sensitive. 74% of consumers are changing their shopping behaviors to get more out of their money. And affordability has gone up 70%. It has interest among consumers as well. So what are some areas that you guys would recommend that our customers, since we're all in this B2B dynamic, where could our customers kind of focus initially with value and protecting profitability?
I think one thought on that is the having we keep talking about relationship. Having a strong relationship with your vendor, and going back just beyond maybe even the salesperson to their trading group, they can give you a picture to the long-term trend on different commodities that might help you identify an area to explore. So we had a large CPG customer who had been using canola in their formula, and they wanted to look at soy, because soy typically trades at a slight discount. And also just from a supply standpoint, most of their facilities in the US, the supply chain is cheaper too. So as the cost of delivery goes up, the price delivered of soy just became more and more attractive. So I think just having that relationship that goes with your vendor beyond just their sales and maybe their technical teams to identify alternatives, but also with their trading teams to identify those long-term trends. I think that's another valuable part of the relationship to call out.
And also, kind of looking back at the smaller startups that we work with on occasion, they co-pack everything. So really tapping into your co-packer and finding those common ingredients so that you can tap into those volume discounts that they get, as well as ensuring supply. Every small startup that we work with, we really encourage them to, as soon as possible, lock in those long-term contracts so that they, one, have supply, and then two, can get a better costing structure. But definitely the co-man network is really a strong one, and we do a lot of vetting out ingredients just so that they can capture that kind of inherent discount. Also, a huge cost savings that I've done in other CPGs is looking at packaging, which I know we're not focused on here, but packaging is great cost reduction.
Yeah, I agree. We're all focused on ingredients, but the whole design of the food product and packaging is very important in that as well. And in terms of like what you guys are seeing from activity from your customers right now, are you seeing more projects that are around reformulating to drive out cost, or new product development that is just focused, has a cost conscious parameter in it?
I would say for many of our customers, they are looking at driving down cost. I would say, though, at the same time, they're looking for certain values, and it depends on who their consumer is. How they position their brand, what's important to their consumer. But a big trend is really around sustainability for our customers. A lot of them are becoming interested in. We've got part of the roundtable on sustainable palm oil. That's an important thing for some of our customers to put on their labels if it contains palm. And then more to domestic oil sources, we're seeing a lot of push into regenerative agriculture practices at the farm that maintain the health of the soil and the sustainability of farming in general. So, I think we're seeing a lot of push into saving money, but also a lot of interest in some of those longer term sustainability pieces being part of their suppliers' practices.
Anyone else see any other type of new product development focus?
Yeah, definitely sustainability is huge. At Mattson, we have people coming all the time to us for lower carbon footprint, regenerative agriculture type products, upcycling of ingredients. So I think we're definitely here to stay. Some of the reformulation work that we've been doing for customers is also kind of around the new coming out healthy guidelines that the FDA has kind of introduced out there. It's not official yet. So we're helping to reduce sugars and sodium and fat based on those. And also, like I said, everybody wants the holy grail. So as you're looking for reducing sodium or sugar, can you save money too? So we've definitely been working on those projects in addition to just innovation. And everybody is very cost sensitive of what you put in it. So they might not have the greatest margins on their kind of historical line, but anything that new that they launch, they do have very tight margin targets. that you can hopefully build in from the very beginning and help them kind of hit those targets.
Yeah, I would say definitely we're in the era of the regulatory changes. So everybody's looking for all the benefits for the low cost and everything that it's so clean that it's there's not much in there. So definitely that is affecting the pricing of the products, all the costing, and just the supply chain being so affected too. It has an effect on all these issues.
Yeah, we see a lot of projects around clean label. Going from non-clean label to clean label sometimes does have a price increase. But then clean label can include non-GMO, organic, clean and simple ingredients. But again, it adds value to the consumer, right? These are the consumer benefits that people are looking for and may be willing to pay an upcharge premium, right? But still, as suppliers and manufacturers, it's about managing costs that meets the consumer target and even the manufacturer's targets as well too. So I agree with all the panelists. We see all types of different projects from innovation to reformulation, even to just plain cost cutting.
And people moving also to some of the private label products that are giving them what they want, and nutritious and cost effective. So we see a lot of that too.
Yeah. So what I hear is that the CPGs are obviously protecting margin and focus on cost, but also still delivering value, sometimes added value, to Ron's point around clean label, some of those like premium type deliverables that the consumers are looking for, but doing so cost consciously as well. All right, let's see. On that note, still around innovation, and you guys kind of hit on it earlier. I heard from Ron about bringing all of your ingredient partners together. Marvin, you hit on Bunge's approach to partnership and working through kind of the contingency plan with ingredients. How can we as ingredient suppliers and formulators continue to help bring innovative solutions to the consumer packaged good manufacturers, but obviously to consumers?
Yeah, one thing that has changed recently is we've started to travel again, and I think just really spending some time in person, you tend to meet with more people. You tend to have deeper conversations that go in directions you wouldn't expect. Just last week, I went and visited one of our customers, and ended up meeting with somebody in the buying group that I wouldn't have met with. That wasn't the main purpose of us being there, but because of that, we ended up talking about a problem that they were having with a development project, and it was in an application area that we can provide some support. So that we'll see where that goes, but it's just an example, I guess, of starting to engage and maybe having some more in-person engagements than we've been doing this Teams thing or this GoToMeeting thing for a while, and switching that up. I think you start to see some benefits and I guess have different types of conversations than you do just remotely.
I see everyone kind of shaking their heads. I think we see that firsthand at Edlong. We always say, well, come into our barn and collaborate with us, and we can truly do rapid prototyping. And even if it involves working with one of our complementary ingredient partners, such as yourselves, kind of get everyone under one roof, you can get to that solution quicker, and often meeting all or most of your needs in the formulation, and then getting that value out to the consumer as well. Right, Marvin, good plug. I appreciate that very much so, in person.
Absolutely.
Way to go. Yeah. All right, before we switch to Q&A, because we have like 5 minutes before that, I see some questions coming in. just want to open up to the panelists. Is there anything that I didn't touch on today that you guys wanted to discuss for our attendees?
I think one thing I want to mention is, from a manufacturer standpoint, what do they see value from their suppliers, right? So it's not just about the ingredients that we provide that meet their formulation needs, but it's also the other resources that suppliers have at their hand. Like we have market insights, we have a culinology team that can help your own culinology team. Going back to what Marvin said, to save costs, have your supply chain talk to our supply chain, and then we meet in the middle in terms of what efficiencies can we work together, as Jamie said, about packaging. So there's all kinds of resources that suppliers have that can help mitigate costs for their manufacturers. Again, it's going back to that partnership, and I love what Laura said. It's a win-win for all, right? So the more we partner together, the more we can accomplish together.
I like when customers come and they present a problem and we are like, that seems a little bit impossible. It's too complicated. And then at the end we troubleshoot, we knock it out of the park, and they said, you guys made the impossible possible. And that really makes all the scientists feel really good and accomplished. So that's also part of the whole system.
I agree with you 100%, Laura. People come to Mattson to solve crazy problems, and I'm always like, at the beginning of the project, you're just like, really? Do you think we can solve this? And then you see it, and you're just like, wow, we did that. So, I think it's really cool, all the stuff that we get to do as food scientists and in the food industry, and provide to our clients, and then ultimately see it in the grocery store. And just wow and delight, especially now with social media, you get to see it real time, your consumer interacting with it and giving you that real time feedback. So we live in a really just fun day and age to see all the trends and get to help work on those and provide solutions to companies.
Totally agree.
I think, is Laura frozen?
Oh.
Can you hear me?
I get it. Oh, not Laura.
Lauren.
Oh, Lauren. Oh, yeah.
No.
Lauren, you're frozen. You went away from a little bit.
I think she went away to prepare for the Q&A. That's what she's doing. Yeah, I mean, just what you all said about that those fun projects, solving these problems that we didn't think were solvable. That's pretty satisfying. And I just think one of the key things is to have that strong technical to technical connection that you keep alive even during times where there's not problems. Just keeping the relationship going and staying in communication. Those are the people we kind of have our pulse on their needs and where things are headed before they get too far down a bad place. So just stay in touch even once things smooth out, which we all hope and assume will happen. Just stay in touch.
Yeah. Lauren is back.
I am. Apologies over here, having some technical difficulties, of course, right? What would virtual life be without, freezing over here? But I will switch to some Q&A now for the last 15 minutes. We do have a few questions that have come in. The first question I would ask is, how are manufacturers dealing with drought on raw materials? Who would like to take that question?
Well, I guess I could give the answer that I think our traders would like, is that the market solves all problems. So if there's a drought, that crop may be impacted, but another crop may not be. We saw this I guess 3 years ago, this is one of the factors that caused the markets to have problems for us with a crop that was grown in Western Canada. There was a big drought out in British Columbia, and the high temperatures that messed up our high oleic canola crop temporarily. So, we saw some decreased yields, but what we saw then is that people were able to move over to another high oleic crop, high oleic soy. So again, it speaks to having in your back pocket already tested some alternative formula options that truly give you the diversity and risk from one crop to another.
Contingency planning. Okay, thank you, Marvin.
One of the things we do at Ingredion is we have a global supply network. So let's say crop is bad in the US, we have a supply chain out in maybe Europe or in the Asia Pacific that we can draw on. So it's really about being able to provide those ingredients from a global supply chain, and in terms of raw materials as well as manufacturing capabilities.
Yeah, I was going to go to the global kind of sourcing. I think we definitely have to be a global thinking because you can't just get it all from the United States. I know even like we were talking yesterday, all the weather that we're having here in California is ruining the buds on trees, stone fruits, and I'm sure tomatoes are impacted. So just being able to source outside of the United States and having those networks in place is a huge win-win, so you're not scrambling at the end.
Yeah, I agree with Jamie here. At Edlong, our supply chain has really strong relationships, and we are able to maintain all our products at hand. So that's very important to us.
Right. Next question is around fluctuating costs for import transportation affects cost increases and now potential cost decreases. Will retail costs take a decrease? And if this isn't the right panel to answer that question, we can definitely follow up with an answer to that question. But anybody have any insight on transportation costs and now potential decreases there? Right. So I think we'll take
I'm just an R&D guy. Sorry.
Yeah. People on that one. So we will follow up with you for submitting that question. And then let's see, next we have, how long does it typically take to develop these new recipes and what are the costs? Curious about the ROI for customers. And then during tests, if you have certain findings, do you share those findings with your customers, or is that proprietary knowledge for the ingredient supplier? So kind of two parts. One is turnaround time to develop recipes, cost, ROI, and then we'll do the second part.
Jamie, you want to start?
Well, so mine is very different than I think yours. So Mattson is a company for hire. So we work with clients on like project basis. So it really, our cost structure is just dependent on what you ask us to develop. And so we can do everything from the fuzzy front end to help you figure out what you want to develop, to internal ideations, external ideations, do the development, the benchtop, find a co-man solution for you and help you scale that up. So that all does come with a fee, but you own your formula after it. You get to help and be involved as much as possible. So the timing usually depends on the complexity of the project. So we usually, though, do the development part at least about like 2 to 3 months, and then find that co-man partner, and you have to order ingredients. So that just adds time. So if it's a fairly simple project, it can move along quickly, which is faster than my typical CPG days where you had a lot of hoops to go through and stage gates to pass. So if you want to move fast, we can move as fast as you want to, and just depends on the project.
Yeah, for us at Edlong, it's a little different. We work with a lot of our customers provide their own bases, And for some of them, we will do some development. But when they provide bases, we can work with them from the very beginning and give suggestions for them to tweak their bases so the flavors can work much better. And at the time, it varies. There are projects that are so fast that you can turn them around in 3 days or a week. There are projects that will turn around in 2 weeks, or there are projects that could take a year because they are really complex and it has to be back and forth and plant trials. And so it just depends also in how the customer, how fast they need the product on the market. So it just goes different ways. There's not like, oh, we take 2 weeks to do everything. It won't work that way.
That'd be great if you did
I
too.
know.
Yeah, we're the same. We're an ingredient supplier, so we have several stock formulas for different applications that we can pull from if the customer doesn't have their own. But generally, it's best if we're using their formula if we're making a test with a new type of shortening, for example.
Yeah, for us, it's the same across the board. It depends on the project. And then we get involved, as Jamie said, in terms of ideation and concept testing, as well as working with a chronology to develop a prototype. We get involved in projects. What Laura said is the customer is halfway through the formulation, but they may need to improve the texture or the work within the cost. And according, based on what Marvin said, it's really about what the customer needs are. So we're very flexible in terms of the ingredient supplier and what type of projects that we work on. And again, I know most food service projects are faster turnaround than retail, because obviously food service is a different animal, but most retail projects can take maybe a month to even a year and a half, depending on their launch timelines, based on what their brand is looking for.
Yeah. All right, thank you guys. And our last question today is actually around that collaboration that you've all hit on today and how important that is, the tackling technical challenges. But how do you do so? How do you navigate IP issues to protect confidentiality information without slowing down progress? Do you guys have any best practice tips you would share?
Well, so at least at Mattson, we're a works for hire company. So our clients own their own IP. We just help develop along the way. We are named on some patents that get launched by our clients, but the client definitely owns everything that we develop. And so we set up NDAs, we do whatever the client needs in order to keep their IP for themselves.
Yeah, for us, we sign NDAs with all our customers. So whatever they give us is their IP, and whatever we put in there, it's ours. So we might get formulas, we might get finished product, and that's totally their secret, and we don't disclose anything to anybody else. And our IP, well, they really care that the product tastes good, so and some of the restrictions and the spec sheet. So other than that, the IP is ours for the flavors.
Yeah, we're not interested in making CPG products. So we do like you both said, the customer owns their IP, and we put in place NDAs. I mean, we just have it's what we do. We have to protect the customer's IP. There's just a trust there. So best practice is to trust your supplier, and then you can put in place NDAs as well, just for some additional protection.
Same with us at Ingredion, NDAs, CDAs, depending on the project and the customer. Pretty typical process.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, guys. Well, that is the end of our Q&A section of our webinar today. So we are about 5 minutes early. So just one announcement I would make as we kind of wrap up and end here. First, thank you to Marvin, Laura, Jamie, and Ron for being our panelists today. We really appreciate your time and your insights on the topic around redefining value and meeting consumer expectations. We do have a special offer for attendees to request a tasting demo that's going to highlight putting cost savings and added value flavor solutions into action. So we will put in the chat a link for you to go to a website to sign up to pick a demo and sign up for that. We'll also send you a reminder by the end of March to do that as well, if you're not able to do that through the chat today, or if you're joining us and watching this after the live recording. So keep an eye out for that. But thank you everyone for attending as well, for your hour this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We appreciate that. And please don't hesitate to reach out to any of our panelists here today and keep the conversation going. And we will follow up with the one question that we weren't able to fully answer today as well. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.